Oh my God. This is going to be the greatest day of probably all of our lives. Uh, this is like I'm like just I'm a what's the word, fluttered. I have the vapors.
You know,
This
the
is part
vapors,
the vapors. Catch me, I'm
clutch
falling.
your pearls.
Is that too antiquated? Is that like a term no longer used to have the vapors?
I love it. I love it. We'll bring it back. We'll bring it back.
Awesome. So we're going to be doing part 2 for our secular humanism thing. We've been waiting for this for quite some time to get Christy Santiago on, which is I guess she's the queen of humanism. Like she's like one of my favorite all-time humans to begin with. And so when I messaged her the other day, and I didn't even think about this, and I'm like, because you have clients for your cosmology, right? Cosmetic cosmetology, cosmetology. And I asked her, I was like, so do you have any clients scheduled for Monday? And what did you say?
I was like, of course not. I'm all yours. Like, I have nothing. I'm all yours.
I didn't even think
Steve is so busy living in his closet that he forgot there was a pandemic.
Wait, stuff's going on in the world? I wasn't paying attention. I was so excited that Christy had like nothing open, there should be nothing booked. And she's like, yeah, I'm all yours. What are you going to do? Talk about humanism? Yes. So I was like, oh.
Yes, humanism.
But anyways,
is
good
easy
morning.
to talk about. It's fun to talk about because it's
This is right up your alley. Yeah, this is your jam. Because
It
you're most
is.
popular now. You're on all these different programs. You have the Leah podcast, which I follow. You're with Mac Davis, Great Skeptic. Yeah, you're getting to be like high on the threshold of YouTube celebrity.
You know what's really, really
She's
cool?
slumming it with us.
No way. This is amazing. I'm nervous and
I
excited.
remember when you were nothing.
Right? I was just that girl that was always saying really silly stuff in the chat.
New YouTube, who dis?
Yes.
No, but congratulations. No, seriously, congratulations that Leah's kind of taking off. By the way, all cards on the table. I am a moderator for Leah, which is the League of Extraordinary Atheists and Humanism, a humanist. Why I'm a mod there, hey, I don't know, but I appreciate it because I'm not an atheist, or I tend to humanistic things somewhat. We'll get into that, but I want to welcome Cheshire first because it's been a while. Cheshire, morning. What do you have your coffee? Isn't she? You know what? And it took her like 5 minutes to get ready. I've been up for like 90 minutes before the show trying to prep for this, and getting all prettied up for you two. So.
It's an age thing because I can't do the 5 minutes either. Mama needs to wake up first.
Man, I didn't do dick. I was mopping the floor downstairs, and then I got
So
the
what
link
I
from
just heard
Google,
was,
and I was like, okay. I was setting up something special for later for streaming at some point soon.
Oh.
VR Pornhub.
Oh yeah, that too.
So a roommate might walk in and see you doing something like this. What's going on?
The most evil thing.
I don't think so.
The most
God,
oh my goodness.
The most evil thing. The most evil thing in today's world is throwing Legos into someone's VR space.
Oh,
what does that do?
Ooh. Okay, so they're not going to be able to see the Legos. So somebody's playing, they're only seeing what's in the headset. So if you throw the Legos and they step on the Legos, that's cruel.
Yeah,
that is straight up. Yeah. Thanks, Satan.
That's warfare.
That is. That's asking
for
it.
a beatdown.
That's how you get saran wrap on your toilet seat at 3 a.m. in the morning.
That's how you get saran wrapped outside on a telephone pole in wintertime.
Man, I'm never pissing either one of you off.
People will die. Yeah. Don't actually do that. That'll kill somebody.
My whole image of Christy has been changed dramatically in a matter of seconds.
It's tough love humanism is what it is.
Right? I love humans, but I'm going to fuck with them to no end if they mess with me. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, I'll do it kindly.
I'll do it with love.
I'll do it kind, I'll be sweet about it.
See,
everybody's got boundaries. Everybody's got boundaries. Don't throw Legos in my VR space.
Well, anyways, it did take a pandemic and a semi-apocalypse to get Christy to join us. So, but now that she's here, we want to dive into S.J. Thomason's blog. I haven't read the whole thing. I couldn't get through it, to be honest with you. I mean, I read part of it, and there's some issues, a lot, that I have with certain parts. But I kind of want to have Christy kind of go over it with us and see if maybe she has the same issues I have with it, and what Cheshire has with it, and what the audience has with it. So we're just going to dive into it. By the way, SJ tweeted this out. She knows about it. She wants to change a few things on her blog, and it's her blog. I mean, change what you like. But I don't know what the updates are. So we might have the old copy. I don't know. But that's all we have to go by right now. But we can, if she's already made the edits, then we'll have the newer copy.
She said she made the edits, which should link to the same thing. Like the edits should
they're
go
already
through
updated,
to the same link. So as far as we know, she did tweet and say that she's added whatever changes that she wanted to add. So as far as we know, we have the updated copy. Apologies if we don't. That's just the fault of the internet at this point. Okay. There's nothing we can do about that. But yeah, I was reading through it and I was really excited because SJ describes humanism in here. And while I was reading it, I was just like, I don't think that's quite right. So I'm excited to have Christy here to tell us exactly how not right that is.
We have Christy Santiago. How can you not be excited?
I read it, and then I read it out loud to Stacy. And reading it out loud is a whole different situation because you hear the...
I don't think what thinking is.
Yeah.
It's a whole other ball game when you're reading it out loud.
Same. I do have to just make a little comment to the picture that's above her article. To me, I'm looking at above water, a Jesus figure putting his hand out while I'm underwater drowning. Now, couldn't Jesus just make me not drown? But he's like, sure. If you can reach my hand and believe in me, I will save you.
My complaint is that it's pixelated as hell.
Well, you're supposed to be underwater too, and you're supposed to be like,
I'm like, and Jesus is like, here's a Bible verse. Yeah. Anyway, I know.
What is the Bible verse? Can you read it on your screen? I have it here, but can you read it?
Romans 2:15. They show that the work of the law is written on their hearts, while their conscience also bears witness, and their conflicting thoughts accuse or even excuse them.
Oh, is this this is the Romans 2:15 one that Sai goes off about it being like, oh no, you totally know there's a God. Like Pelagia did like a whole thing on this and how this is like a terrible argument.
Yeah, it's in her description of in this article. She tells me that I know that there's a God. I'm just denying it.
Now
does SJ actually follow that, or is this just in her article? Because I know sometimes, like SJ doesn't seem.
I've heard her say that everyone knows. In rooms where she's talking to other Christians, that everyone knows there's a God. They just are denying it because they, want to be a sinner or they don't want to follow his law. But I've also heard her say that, she doesn't know what other people believe and that's just her opinion. So.
Yeah, this is a contradiction.
Oh, okay. So she kind of plays a little bit of both. Okay.
I can tell you right now, I don't know if there's a God or not. I that is a straight up fact. I know my position better than anybody else because it's mine. And I think Romans 2 is taken gross out of context. I know Pelagia did do some stuff on it, and I think if I remember correctly, he basically said the same any sane person would say about Romans 2. That it. By the way, I think that it is written to the when Paul was writing to the people in was it Carth? Was it Carth that he was writing to, the church that fell away? He was writing to like Jews that fell away, but it wasn't supposed to be to like all humans, right? Because
it's supposed to be of people of the faith already, yeah.
Right, that actually knew and then fell away, right? Exactly. Or claimed it.
Right. Well, I mean, a lot of atheists would technically fall under that, wouldn't they? People who believed and then fell away.
Right.
Yeah, but like I said, I think when he was writing this, it was very specific sect that he was writing to and said, "Hey, look, you guys know this, but you're still not living the proper way or whatever." Again, I don't follow the
yeah, but
stuff.
that would apply exactly to atheists. Well, not all atheists, but that would apply to a large number of atheists who. So by that reasoning, their argument in using this would actually be correct. Like, you know this stuff. Why are you not following? Blah 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 blah.
Yep, because you just want to sin, Cheshire.
Christians are just as much sinners, man.
Sinning.
yeah, it doesn't take being an atheist or a non-believer to sin, because I tell you what, I've seen a lot of Christians, and I tell you what, they sin a lot.
Yeah, I don't get it. If I just liked my sin, would I not be a Christian and then just get, like, ask for forgiveness later? And be like, look, I can just get away with it scot-free.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys have both seen the memes. You could pray to God for a bike, or you could steal one and ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I don't know if you're familiar. There's
the second one.
Or just be like Al Jolstein or one of those, evangelists for, what do they call them, prosperity gospel. Say, look, I need a Learjet because God wants me to use my Learjet to go with the message out to the world, or a bicycle. I'll ride a bicycle. Now, you know what? They're not going to ride a bicycle. These guys, no prosperity gospel person is going to be like, you're going to see me dead on a bike. Are you kidding?
That's what that Queen song was. That Queen song is just a prayer to God for a bike. It's just Freddie Mercury praying to God for a bike.
Prosperity gospel, as a humanist, really, really irks me. It boils my blood. It's infuriating to me, and I'm a history nut, as I'm sure most people who follow me. I love history. I love to learn. I love to read history. And I found out recently, confirmed recently, that I'm not so anti-theist as I thought, because liberation theology actually is something I can get behind. And liberation theology is the exact opposite of prosperity gospel. And if you follow history, MLK was a liberation theologist. All of these civil rights leaders were liberation theologists. They didn't care if you were atheist, Buddhist, Christian. It didn't matter. Come be a part of our solidarity and fight for human rights. That's what it was about. And I love that. I could get behind that. I could be a part of that. I can march to that. And there was this pendulum swing in America when Reagan came in. He had huge problems with liberation theology in South America.
That guy.
Yeah. So death squads and getting rid of these liberation theologists, preachers and pastors and priests, they had to go. So they were assassinated. And the exact opposite started happening to change the narrative of liberation theology, of, giving what you have. If you have $2 and your tummy's full, feed somebody. That was kind of the message, is solidarity, take care of each other. The opposite of that is prosperity gospel. And the narrative started swinging in 1979, 80, 81, 82, to get rid of that liberation theology, to stamp it out. And so 2 weeks ago on Leah, I did a whole segment on liberation theology and on a priest named Oscar, who I thought is just a humanist hero as a priest. Like, I totally walk hand in hand with this man. He was just a beautiful humanist. And so learning changes your opinions. I want everyone to know all the time. I'm always changing my opinion. Liberation theology is a theology that I 100% stand behind. If it's the civil rights version of, it doesn't matter what creed, what religion, I support you and let's do this together. I'm for it. So if anybody's interested in liberation theology and how America became a prosperity gospel hub, just, type in liberation theology. That's what I did. And just start there. It's beautiful. You'll read a lot of speeches by MLK and a lot of democratic socialists from the time who were fighting for Medicare for all and education for all in like 1962 and 63, way ahead of their time. So,
by the way, I remember.
I know, a rant, but.
No, please, by all means, rant. We love your rants. I do remember those years, 79 to the early 80s and mid 80s with the Trinity Broadcasting Network.
Yes.
That really was the beginning of a lot of the prosperity gospel that, at least in my opinion, was the vanguard, I guess, to lead the way to the modern day the prosperity gospels. But all right, so let's start diving into this because we haven't made it past the initial.
I know.
Yeah.
This is what happens.
This is gonna be by the way, this is gonna be a 4-hour show. Just to let you know, 4 hours. We're gonna keep Christy as long as we can because she may never come back again.
Okay, let's start. According to secularhumanism.org, the article starts. Secular humanism is a comprehensive, non-religious life stance incorporating 1, naturalistic philosophy, 2, a cosmic outlook rooted in science, and 3, a consequentialist ethical system, which I had to stop there for a minute. Everything is a consequentialist system. Everything is. We have rules and consequences that we decide what they are, but I digress. Secular humanism is the atheist's attempt to smuggle in some Christian values while ignoring the Christian God. Its tenets are deeply flawed, as I will explicate next. A naturalistic philosophy. A naturalistic position is a position where people believe that everything we experience can be explained by natural causes or properties, excluding supernatural or spiritual explanations. I concur. People who endorse naturalism believe that everything can be explained by science. Okay. But this belief is also known as scientism, and I know that that's an actual word, but it irks me.
Yeah, this is where I have a huge problem here.
When I was reading it, I was just like, what? I
this
was
is
a word.
actually. I just wrote a blog on something similar to this. This is called a modal scope fallacy. This is a modal fallacy where you take a sum and make it an all, right? People that endorse naturalism, some people that endorse naturalism may believe that things are explained by science. I have met some people like that. I know Aaron Ra tends to fall into scientism. I know a few other people that tend to fall into scientism. But scientism is a real word. It actually is a position where you think the best or the only way to acquire knowledge is through science. I disagree with scientism. I think it's a very poor position to have. But not all people that endorse naturalism fall into scientism. And she's turning a sum into an all. That is a modal problem.
Yes. No, it is. I don't like blanket. I do not agree with blanket statements when you're writing an article with so many claims in it. When I read this, it's for a specific group of people that won't question this. They'll just
she writes to her own viewers, right? Her own readers, right? And by the way, explicate means to explain in a very simplistic type way, or at least in a way that somebody understands. Somebody asked in the live chat. I'm trying to pay attention to the live chat. So if I say I'm going to explicate something, it means I'm going to explain in a way hopefully you can understand, kind of thing.
Simplified version.
Simplified.
And the thing is I think people when they're writing or when they're speaking take simplified as I'm going to umbrella this, when that's not the same thing. You could easily make this. You could easily write this in just as easily or as simple as a way to understand, without just lumping everybody into big, broad groups of that aren't necessarily accurate. Because again, if you're writing simply, you still need to be accurate.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'd also point out
you'll see it a lot in here.
I would point out, this is from secularhumanist.org, but I still have, now again, this is their positions. Like number 3, a consequential ethical system. There are actually systems out there not based upon consequentialism. Utilitarianism is a consequential system, but there are other ones. I tend to like virtue ethics, which is based on virtues, not the consequences. So humanism seems to be not grounded in virtue ethics according to secular humanism. This is one thing, again, that I don't fall under secular humanism because I do tend to virtue ethics. I think it's a better way for at least myself to look at ethics rather than consequentialism.
That's something that I think I wanted to jump on to Christy and ask. So we were reading through the Secular Humanist website, and it had a lot of anti-theism, and I was getting confused because I was like, is that really what is necessary? And it seems like some of that has actually gotten now into this article.
Right. It muddies the waters to me. Our channel, I'll speak for myself, the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism. Mac and I and Nacha are atheists. However, that's not the important part of this league. We're for humanism. We will have theists that are humanists. We will have anti-theists who are, we do not care what your belief system is, as long as it's, you have good reasons for believing them, because we'll challenge you, but that you're a humanist. Anti-theism should not, in my opinion, even be in the description. It just shouldn't.
Right.
Your secular humanism is, non-magical humanism. We don't have to have any talk about theism as far as that.
That's the big point against secularhumanism.org, because humanism could be a philosophy or it could be a movement, and secular humanism is more into the movement other than the philosophy. The philosophies I don't have much against, actually. I do tend to a lot of secular humanism, a lot of humanistic philosophies, but the secularhumanism.org, I don't, and the reasons being something like even number one, a naturalistic philosophy. A naturalistic philosophy entails you have the position there is no supernatural, there are no gods, and so a theist could not be a secular humanist according to them. You are fine with it. I'm fine with that. Look, I'm fine with a theist being a humanist. I get it.
Yeah.
But to a secular humanist, they've already excluded and precluded any theist from being a secular humanist, because they've said, you have to have a naturalistic philosophy, which clearly a theist wouldn't. And by the way, right. I do know people that advocate for secular humanism, according to secularhumanism.org, that say, well, I don't really have a position on God, right? I mean, I'm not saying no gods exist. I'm like, but if you're a member of that organization and you adhere to their tenets, to hold to the naturalistic philosophy, you do have to believe there are no gods. That is, to be rational, that is a logical entailment. And I've made that argument 2 years ago, by the way. That's nothing new. I've had that for a very long time.
I think the problem that we're kind of starting to run into here is that the way that the secularhumanism.org is defining these things and trying to represent the way they're trying to represent their position has now added in an additional piece of agenda that doesn't have anything to do with the actual position. And now that is creating a us versus them issue with anybody who is religious.
I agree.
Cool.
All right, we're on the same page. All right, moving on here.
When SJ at the beginning of this article says that secular humanists are trying to steal Christian ideas without the God, I'm going to give her that one on this point. Okay, this particular website is stealing the tribalism of religion and adding it right to this and not being better than. So, right.
Hey, you've been preaching to the choir here. I mean, I've been saying this for how long that I've seen, and you know me for a very long time. I've seen atheist groups do the same thing. They fall into the same dogmatic, idealistic, tribalistic mindset. I know people that are avid content creators who are atheist. I mean, who contact me, and I'm not going to drop any names here, that have told me they've kindly come around and realized what I've been saying a long time, that the atheist, what we see on the internet, they're not as open-minded and logical and rational as people want them to make them out to be, right? And I've said this for some time, is that when you fall into a tribe, right, and we all do somewhat. I mean, tribalism is a real thing, and you can't get rid of it 100%. But when you fall into it,
wouldn't necessarily even be a good thing to get rid of it 100%.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. I don't think that you should. I think there's some reasons to be a little tribalistic. Look, I mean, I protect my friends. You protect your friends. We do have that kind of tribe. But when you sacrifice actual reason, logic, and things like that nature to maintain your position, which we've seen people do in theist communities and atheist communities, what's the difference at that point? And I think secularhumanism.org, when I've read some of their stuff, it seems, just like Christine said, a lot more tribalistic than I would like.
Right, and why would you want to exclude people? If your point is humanism, humanism, it's, to me, it is very idealistic. It is very like pie in the sky. That's good. I want to continue to strive to be better, even if it's unattainable in my lifetime. I want to put that in my children's minds so that they put it in their children's mind. But to achieve that, you can't add in the things that we don't like from religion or tribalism, exclusivity. You're not part of our group, so you're not as good. To me, is supremacy, and any type of supremacy is disgusting. So
yeah, you hold the position that is the. Real quick, it seems to me you hold the position that it is the attempt to try to reach the goal rather than actually reaching the goal itself that is virtuous, which I'm okay with. Jesh?
So essentially, you run into a couple of problems that we've been discussing. One of them is that this article would probably not exist in the way it does if they had removed this anti-religious dogma, essentially, that I'm going to call it, that's in this secular humanist website. So it's detracting from its own goal. But on top of that, you don't necessarily have to change what your positions are. Just change what you're calling yourself, because you're misrepresenting a position by adding extra baggage on top of it. So if you adjust, instead of calling it secularhumanism.org, if you adjust what your group is actually aiming to do, which is secular humanism with a splash of anti-theism, make that clear to people and don't claim that you are all of this. And then also with this little bit that we've added in on the side, but don't worry about that. That's definitely not what we're doing, though.
I don't know if it's misrepresenting so much as just taking taking the concepts and just kind of making it their own. I don't know if that's a misrepresentation per se, but
it might be that group. Yeah, it might be that particular group. You know, that's how they feel. And because we live in the world of the web, there is a definition that will fit your idea of an idea for everyone. So unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of this. And when we have untruthful or dishonest actors who might even be good people, I don't think SJ is a bad person. It's just fits the narrative.
Just fine.
Yeah, it just.
Yeah, I don't agree with what she says.
She's very brave. She goes into chat rooms, to actually participate all the time in the lion's den, all the time. Yeah, I've told her multiple times that I think she's very brave. It's easy to find. Come on, the Nazis called themselves National Socialists, so people are able to still try to say the Nazis were on the left. There are definitions for everything that fit anybody's everything. So it's very important for rational people who want to, uplift the discourse, who want to have honest discussions, to progress, to evolve as a society, for people like us to call that out and say, yes, you found this here. And that is what they say. However, that is not me. And let me explain why, and why it's important for you as a Christian to be a humanist too, if we want to live in a better society. I think is the most important thing. So,
I think.
Go ahead.
Isn't I was muted. Sorry, I got hit my thing. I think that you'd probably end up with a lot of Christians who would argue that Christianity is humanist, but you would probably end up with a dichotomy there, because you would have, there's probably like a good number that are, but you would probably end up with a majority claiming that they are, while they're still like, but those gay people though. You know what I mean? Like, so it'd be like, well, because it's immoral, therefore it's not good for humanity, therefore it's still humanist. You see what I'm saying? Like that, I feel like that's the arguments that you would start running into if that were the case.
It would be, and that's I think where I would add my secular.
It would be a better discussion than what we're having right now, which is just stuff getting confused. Because right now what we're doing is we're trying to sort out and explain why SJ is wrong, but part of the reason why SJ is wrong is because the website itself has stuff in it that it shouldn't have, in accordance with what they call themselves.
Yeah, and SJ is willing to have a discussion, like Christy points out, right? I mean, you don't have to agree with her, but I'd much rather have somebody I don't agree with that's willing to discuss things, because if you just isolate people you disagree with, on the other side, if I had every theist that I disagreed with, I wouldn't have any theists to talk to, because I disagree with all of them.
You don't get anywhere. The discussion doesn't even move.
Right, so I'd rather have somebody like SJ where you may be able to change your mind, or you have a conversation with that people can watch. I would take 1,000 SJs over one, like Pat Towle or somebody. Or Ken Hovind. Yeah, exactly. Pat who? So I mean, there's a huge discrepancy between types of theists out there. Yeah, can't do Hovind.
I don't know how anybody talks to him. I am very sweet. I am very nice. I care about kindness. I care about not hurting feelings. I think he would make me Skylar fiction him and tell him to eat a bag of dicks. Like
you would probably end up punching him at some point. Can we scroll down a little bit on the on the blog?
Cosmic Outlook.
Yeah, let's start. No, we're at naturalism is flawed.
Yes. Naturalism is flawed. Yeah, go ahead. You can
Naturalism is flawed because it fails to explain our conscience, spirituality, laws of logic, objective, stance independent, moral values, and duty, consciousness, apprehension of aesthetics, art and beauty, reasoning, mathematical principles, apprehension of abstract concepts, dreams, and appreciation for virtues such as love, empathy, honesty, forgiveness, equality of opportunities, equity, and justice. In other words, naturalism fails to explain numerous important aspects of our daily lives.
Okay, Christy, I want you to try to take this one, then I'll give my opinion on it.
Okay. First of all, if I were to read that and then someone say, what do you think this is about? Humanism would never be any part of that. That has nothing to do with humanism. So I understand what she's trying to do. No, natural can't explain dreams and art. Those are all subjective. They're like your opinion, man. And as far as principles, love, equity, that's what humanism is for. So I feel like I am looking at someone who is trying to convey falsities about something, because if I was the 10 years ago me who still had magical thinking, I would think, wow, she really nailed it right here. And that's scary to me, and that's why it's so important that we take this one apart. Dreams, I mean, what? Dreams are dreams. They don't make sense or don't make sense. There's no logic. That one was
I can sum it up in one sentence.
Okay, go for it.
In one sentence.
Do it. TLDR.
Okay. Because it's not supposed to. Naturalism's not supposed to explain any of these things. That's not what naturalism is. Naturalism is a philosophical position that there is nothing but physicality, right? I mean, that there is no supernatural. There's no spirituality as far as, I believe in spirituality, by the way, but I mean, there's no spirituality as far as supernatural spirituality. And by the way, you do not have to have supernaturalism to have spirituality, but she's trying to relate the concept of naturalism, which is the position that there are no ghosts, demons, or anything relating to non-natural objects, to these types of things that are completely unrelated. We can have objective morals and values and duties without naturalism. We could have consciousness without naturalism. They could be phenomenal type of things. They could be emergent properties. I had Dr. Joss Rasmussen on the other day from Philosophy of Mind. He's more of a, I think he falls more under I think he is a monist. I don't think he's a dualist, but I still think that, even he would probably agree that you still could have a consciousness just based upon biological manifestations. And these are some kind of emergent thing, not required any kind of non-naturalistic explanation. And so these abstract concepts, the apprehension of abstract concepts doesn't require non-natural explanations. And this is where I think SJ fails. Naturalism or non-naturalism, neither one explain any of these things. Right. This is a philosophical stance. You can have appreciation and empathy and honesty and forgiveness and equity and all these things, natural or non-natural. There's no preclusion to hold a naturalist position and not have these things. And neither one explains any of these. If I said, hey, look, I'm a non-naturalist, right? Does that mean I can still explain empathy? No.
Right.
Well, it kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense that this is a little bit incorrect, though, right? Because as she stated above, she was thinking along the lines of scientism. And along that thinking, you would say that, well, no, it shouldn't be naturalism that says this, it should be scientism. If you change the term naturalism and you remove it and you put scientism in and then make the claims that scientism does not explain these things, you would have a better position. You'd have a better argument to kind of go off. I think this is just a confusion of terms, in my opinion.
Exactly.
I might be able to agree with that.
I think, when I watch like AXP and for years now, all the time, every single Sunday, somebody says those words. But science doesn't explain love and dreams, and so that has to come from somewhere, and our monkey minds need an explanation. We need to have everything fit into boxes and make sense. And you're right, science can't explain supernatural because it's supernatural. And as someone who's a rational thinker now, that I can look at that and be like, well, yeah, duh, it's not supposed to explain those things.
That's what philosophy, by the way, philosophy does. Philosophy tries to explain. I shouldn't say philosophy does. Philosophy tries to explain these. These are philosophical concepts. They're not scientific concepts. Science can explain the underlying mechanisms, right? Maybe we can explain one day dreams by the underlying mechanism, biologically speaking. But the apprehension of the abstract concepts, such as dreams, that falls into the realm of philosophy.
It does. And so I can speak as someone who didn't go to college, who became a mom, at 3 months before my 18th birthday, who went to cosmetology school and does hair, which is chemistry and, and math and geometry and all of that fun stuff. And I've always loved to learn, but I never took philosophy. So this has been, the last few years of my life, I just cannot learn enough. It's almost like a drug. The more I learn, the more I'm like, I'm so dumb. There's so much, and it's just, I need more. And so, but as that person now, I have empathy and understanding, and I understand the person who has let go of their God belief and has stopped there because they have figured it out. I get it. It's hard then to say, well, I was wrong about all of that. That's huge. Maybe I'm wrong about other things too. Maybe I'm even wrong about this new thing that I think that I figured out. It's hard for our monkey brains to do that. So for people, who think, I hear this a lot too, well, I don't care about philosophy. I care about facts.
Oh God, it's cringeworthy. It's actually cringeworthy.
It is.
What do they think facts come from? What do they think defines facts?
But as humanist, I feel like the me that would be like, yeah, dumbass, facts don't care about your feelings either. That person is not going to change hearts and minds. So it's really important, like when I read this, and I know this is for a specific audience of hers, to also lift or reach my hand out to those people and say, if you guys want to have a conversation of why humanism is so important as a Christian, as a Muslim, as a Hindu, as a brony, I don't care. If you're a furry and you want to be a humanist with me, let me know and we'll get down with the get down. Like, humanism is for everyone. So
I met a guy once who was a hardcore Christian, but was also a brony, and his display picture on his phone was Twilight sparkle porn. I don't know how you reconcile those two things.
Whatever trips your trigger, man.
Listen, man. I don't judge.
Yeah, I don't kink shame. My giggling is actually like fascination.
Exactly.
That's my fascination giggle. All right. You wanna start a cosmic outlook, Steve?
Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah. Cosmic outlook.
You can read it. Oh, you want me to read it? I like your voice better. Yeah.
Okay.
We brought you on for one thing, to read this.
That's good. I like to read. Okay, a cosmic outlook. According to secularhumanism.org, quote, secular humanism provides a cosmic outlook, a worldview in the broadest sense, grounding our lives in the context of our universe and relying on methods demonstrated by science. Secular humanists see themselves as undesigned, unintended beings who arose through evolution, possessing unique attributes of self-awareness and moral agency, end quote. This relates to a famous phrase by the atheist Richard Dawkins, quote, which I find actually poetic. It says, DNA neither cares nor knows. DNA just is, and we dance to its music.
Yeah, I have some issues with this, and I'll just throw that out there real quick, then you can run with it.
Oh, I know. I listened to you made some criticisms of Richard Dawkins before, and when I heard that's what you're going to talk about, I had already put that tribalism up, like, oh.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Richard Dawkins' philosophy. I've criticized his Dawkins scale. Yeah. But I've also supported him. Like, he had a discussion with Alex O'Connor, Cosmic Skeptic, and I think Dawkins was right, because Dawkins was arguing to Alex that we shouldn't we shouldn't indoctrinate our children by calling them atheists, because again, I don't believe that babies and children are atheists. You know my position very staunchly that we're not born atheists. I think that to say that we're born atheists is just absolutely ridiculous. And Richard Dawkins was telling O'Connor, hey, this is just as form of indoctrination as it would be if a theist was saying my child's Catholic. What is the difference? And O'Connor wasn't. Right? Yeah, and Cosmic Skeptic wasn't grasping that, because he was just so adhering to the sensu lato definition of atheism that American Atheist uses and Atheist Community Austin uses that. Yeah, so he was not understanding Dawkins' argument, and I was actually on Dawkins' side on that one, right? So it's not like I'm trying to.
It doesn't help progress the argument. It doesn't help progress the discussion.
It doesn't, and I think Dawkins made a very good point. You know, if you're gonna, what's the difference if you're saying, hey, look, my kid's an atheist as opposed to my kid's a Catholic? You're not letting the kid decide, and that is a form of indoctrination either way. But the main reason I have the problem with this is because the word undesigned. And here's the reason. The greatest thing that Charles Darwin gave to humanity was the ability to understand the difference between teleological and teleonomic. And we are designed teleonomically, not necessarily theologically. And back then, the appearance of design was people didn't understand why there was such an appearance of design in nature. Now, the prevailing positions were we have some kind of teleological design, meaning a design from a supernatural being, God, some designer. But Darwin came along and said, look, yeah, there's an appearance of design, but you know what? Here's an alternative explanation based upon naturalistic explanation for looking at a naturalistic, phenomenon of why we appeared to have certain things like design. My hand is designed to cup, like my cup. It's designed to grasp it. It's designed.
I thought you were about to say something else. I was like, oh no!
Off air. She makes me blush. She's one of the very few people that can actually make me blush. Not many people do.
Where was my mind?
I am not one of those people. My sister is one of those people. I'm not.
Well, yeah, your sister can make me blush too. Wow, I'm almost crying here. Stop.
I think what you run into. Is you end up. You run into a problem where we had this discussion a little bit with the girls last Tuesday. We were talking about how it doesn't make sense when you're talking about gender stereotypes or when you're talking about sexuality to impose straight being the norm. The best way to do it is to just be like, you're attracted to whatever you're attracted to and make bi the norm, and then you just lean one way or the other. And then you may lean so far that you're only really attracted to men, or you may lean so far that you're only attracted to female. But if you have this bi mentality out the gate, then it opens up all the options. So I mean, realistically, if you wanted to you still wanted to identify your child religiously, your best bet would to say you're agnostic right now. You don't know. Every child is agnostic from the get-go because they haven't been able to assess anything, and then therefore they can then go from there.
Hope of agnosticism puts the kibosh on that. No, to be agnostic, you have to be able to evaluate the proposition.
Philip, the best is what I did. You raise your children and you say you are a young Padawan learner. You have a lot to learn.
So that make you a Jedi?
Yeah, now you're pushing Jedi religion.
Yeah, now you're doing the Skywalker religion.
Into the Jedi.
Yeah. No,
and you're a learner. That's what you are, and you have much to learn.
I follow.
So you just don't even bother bringing it up.
Yeah. Well, the Graham Offee approach is
just don't even talk about it.
The Graham Offee approach is that babies would be innocent because they're unaware of the proposition, right?
Yeah, I'm not talking about identifying the child in a philosophical or technical sense. I'm talking about.
But agnostic means that you've actually evaluated and you've actually said, I suspend judgment on it, right? You actually hold the position that you can't evaluate the proposition. It is something that requires an active position. So a baby can't do that. So that's why I think Offee's calling them innocent is much more applicable because they're unaware of the proposition. They don't even know about it. How could they even have
the question then becomes, how do you communicate that to a child?
Well, that's just, again, the child's going to have to learn about these things on their own.
How do you so how do you do that without, I guess the best way would be to not identify at all and just say that this is a thing, this is a thing, this is a thing, this is a thing. You go figure it out. I don't know.
That's what innocent actually means, though, here, right? They are innocent.
Right.
We got a super chat. You want to read the super chat, Chach?
Christine just invented the wank maker argument. Helios for 2.
The
You're
WMA.
WMA.
I'll be here all
I
week.
like it. 10 out of 10. Is that a promise?
Yeah, really? Can we keep you?
We have nothing to do. We're on a lockdown.
We'll kidnap you for the entire week. We don't mind.
We've got an additional that time of the month coming up next week if you want to join us.
Hey, you know what? The first 2 letters of both you guys are named the same. It doesn't take much to get rid of Chesh and put your movie over and.
Yeah, let's just morph the names.
I love you, Chesh.
Cheshteen.
Whatever, man.
Cheshteen.
Chess has been replaced by Christy.
Shire.
It's fine. I see how it is. It's fine.
Oh goodness. Okay. Let's go back to trying to be an adult. All right.
Try.
The cosmic outlook rooted in science sounds impressive, she says. Yet this outlook alone is not enough to explain the depth and breadth of humanity. I agree with that. Are we mere pounds of flesh, or are we individuals who actively seek agency, meaning, purpose, love, and the truth? ? Are we just the lucky beneficiaries of cosmic accidents who miraculously evolved from primordial soup into conscious beings whose DNA sequence consists of 3.5 billion well-ordered letters? ? If you saw the words, quote, "I love you," written on a beach, would you assume they accidentally appeared from varying ocean tides? Or would you assume a mind was behind that statement? Now imagine a logical sequence or sentence with words containing 3.5 billion letters, just like human DNA. DNA is a code, and a code does not come without a coder. Give the coder credit where the credit is due. That's the watchmaker fallacy, summed up in
Yeah,
a
it really is. It's the watchmaker fallacy. It's the tornado and junker fallacy. And there's so much wrong with this. I mean, we could probably spend about an hour just talking about this one paragraph.
I agree.
Cheshire's back because one sec. We have Cheshire has one job. That's why we can't get rid of her. She has to read the super chats.
Okay.
So that's why she's an
Well,
integral part of the show because that's her.
Right.
Jess, will you please let the lovely Moons super chat?
Only if you apologize to me. Groveling.
I express my humble apology. We need you. We love you. We can't do without you. I can't go a day without you. Blah 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 blah. But you're still, you're still needed by the show. So go ahead.
I would put you in my pocket. I would put you in my pocket.
But that doesn't,
I would fit.
yeah, I was gonna say, but that doesn't mean that I don't want Christy not to be around because we want to keep her.
Yeah, the answer is why not?
She makes me fluttered. I'm sorry. I love Christy. I always have. She's adorable. She's like the best. No, seriously. I mean, you were one of the nicest people I've ever met in my entire life. Sincerely nice. That's rare.
I really, really appreciate that. I think that if I could be remembered for anything in this world, would be that everywhere I found myself, I left it a little bit better than the way I found it. That's it. Just a little bit.
That's a hell of a motto. Yeah, that's great. Moon, what's Moon Super Chat? Because we love Moon too.
Moon Super Chat says, I like her. Have her back. Referring to Christy.
We're just full of love.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If Christy ever wants to come, she's always going to be welcome.
Yes.
Just for Moon, I will be back.
So the problem I have, the thing with this paragraph is that, like I said, I'm not even joking. We could probably spend an hour just on one paragraph. Because I mean, I've actually argued DNA is not a code. I know that Saigar disagrees with me, but I know other people that do agree with me. I don't think it's a code. I don't treat it as a code because in cryptology, I've actually made a very solid case that in cryptography, it is not considered a code. Now, would you consider it a code? Maybe. Thank you. You saw my yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
And stated clearly, I think was, I mean, a formidable opponent, but I don't think he was really listening to what I had to say is about why I was taken from a cryptological point. I even disagree with him as far as Shannon information. I don't think it is a code for that either. Now, if you want to get into some other aspects of what considered to be as a code, okay, fine. But again, then it gets into semantical, terminological things that I wasn't that interested in. But the main reason I have a problem with this is not just the watchmaker fallacy. It is because we have seen certain things occur by humans. If I saw "I love you" written in a peach, I've seen humans do similar things. We can draw an inference from an abductive argument that that is the most likely explanation that a mind or a human has done such a thing. We've never seen anything like DNA code that a human mind has possessed and done. And by the way, we have never seen a non-material, non-corporeal mind, right? So suggests that DNA has some type of mind behind it. We've never witnessed something like that. So you cannot really, in my opinion, draw a fair abducted argument from that, right?
Yeah, I think you would argue that. I agree with Stuart Scott in the chat here that says the code is a metaphor for a layperson. It's a layperson way of trying to describe something that a layperson can't grasp.
It's chemistry.
Yeah,
it's chemistry. Matter of fact, when I showed that though in the chemistry, I actually showed how to relate to information theory using A, T, C, and G using a Shannon formula, which is just a summation of how many bits it would take to describe DNA, right? And again, this is like Sheshar said, it's just a way to describe to people these are nucleotide sequences. But again, first of all, I wouldn't inquire
that to somebody who doesn't know anything about chemistry, right?
Right. We're talking about a massive amount of the population who are science illiterate, basic science illiteracy. And so when they hear or see this, in their minds, now I am going to blanket statement, and it is just my opinion, I must state that, I feel that in their minds, they think someone looked in a microscope and there's an actual code, like ABD1, you know, and that's not...
That would be a hell of a case.
Yes, but when these are the same people who say, how can evolution be true when there are still monkeys? You know, so...
Right. Yeah, you're right. You run into trouble when you're not arguing the science anymore. You're arguing the communication of that science at this point. Right. Now it's a matter of an issue about whether or not you think the way the science is being communicated or the way the chemistry is being communicated is appropriate because it may or may not be confusing people. But I think with the education system at the level that it's at, it's going to happen no matter what. Unless we do an adjustment and make our education system better, we're kind of in that case.
And I have a huge case for education under humanism. If you ever want to have me on to talk about education,
can we have that discussion?
We'll do a part 3. But you know, I think a better case for theists to make would not be a DNA as a code. I would go from the position that codons, the RNA chart, or so when you're being synthesized from messenger RNA into these proteins, there's a certain three-letter codon that's coded. That to me, okay, you might be able to call that a code. Okay, I don't even have a problem if somebody calls it a code. I still don't think it really is, but I'm less likely to argue against that than DNA, right? But that doesn't mean that you need a coder. It's exactly what Christine said. We're taking the molecules, we're attributing them to something like H2O. H is not a code. O is not a code. These are especially as to be a one-to-one correspondence, which is more of a cipher.
To have that discussion, though, we should probably bring in Geo, who was in the chat earlier. I don't know if he's still here, but if we're going to have like a discussion breaking down like decent arguments for code versus
I would love to see Geo and Cygart. Wouldn't that be great?
We'd have to bring Geo and Cygart on because I think that would be a fantastic discussion. Also, we got a super chat, so I'm just jumping in real quick.
Yep.
Helios575 for 10 said, babies are neither theist nor atheist as they don't have the knowledge to analyze that. I don't even see 8-year-olds to be either because while they are still learning, they can't yet analyze the data.
I completely agree.
That would be go into child psychology and like how old is it before they're actually making conscious, informed decisions. Well informed is, there's a lot of adults who make poorly informed decisions, so
Yeah.
Educated.
And by the way, somebody had asked if Christy is an agnostic or an atheist. She said at the very beginning she's an atheist, and I know that from experience that you believe there are no gods. You don't have any supernatural beliefs or anything like that. Yeah.
No, I do not. But I used to. I mean, if anybody's curious, my mom taught Vacation Bible School. In the summertime, we would have after Vacation Bible School at church. We would have the aftercare at our house. My mom was the lead singer in the church. also part of the choir. I was at church Monday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday morning, Sunday night. Growing up, I was part of a youth group. I did it all. I had a Precious Moments Bible and all of the Christian groups that we would, come to our church to perform.
I remember the Precious Moments one. Aww,
yes,
the
I did with my name,
kids.
my name engraved on it in gold.
Let me ask you, Christy, if you look under a microscope at a cell and you saw, like spelled out in molecular thing, Allah was here, would that convince you? That might give you pause, right? But we don't see.
Yeah, I would need to know. Can we repeat it?
Well, we didn't create it, so it's not something that we need to be repeatable. But if I looked in a cell and I looked at the molecules and it spelled out Allah was here, all over the place, believe me or die. I don't know. Believe me or die. I don't know.
I think that a better one would be, and this is one that I've posed to, my family is relatively religious, so one that I posed to them when they were still maybe a little bit more heavily involved than they are currently. I told my mom to. I explained one of the stories in the Bible is about Baal and lighting the fire, and like I'm gonna pray to my God, and they're gonna light it on fire, and they prayed for like 7 days, and nothing happened. And they prayed to God once and lit the fire. So I said I pulled out a candle. I pulled a candle over, and I said, "Light it." Do you just not have as much faith as that guy did? How do you even know that? Right, so I was just like, if you can light this would be convincing to me. It might not 100% convince me yet, but it would be a start. So it's like, at least, okay, so you've prayed. Can you do it again? Or can you do it with multiple candles? Or can it be anything? Is this something only you can do? Or is it something that with equivalent faith? So then you can actually start the process of actually being able to figure it out versus, just because.
Hey, I remember as a kid trying to move things with my mind when I was like,
oh, yes.
7, 8 years old.
Hell yeah.
Back then, the age of Aquarius, yeah.
I'm like,
oh yeah, the age of Aquarius, that was big back then, right? I was reading stuff and I was learning about palmistry, even though I didn't believe in the palmistry aspect of it back in my teens. But earlier than that, I would read things about pyramid power and faces on Mars and I'm like, okay, and I would sit there and try to concentrate and you know what? The only thing that came about me trying to move something with my mind, getting a fucking headache. So, maybe God gave me a headache. Maybe the magical powers gave me a headache. But I mean,
you are moving things with your mind. It's just the pressure in your brain.
Yeah.
Haven't we ever all done this? Please let her love me. Please let her love me, God. It doesn't work. By the way, that does not fucking work.
Yeah. I believed in some. I'm sure we all, all of us apostates, have let go of, and I speak for myself, a lot of completely embarrassing beliefs. But I find that as a humanist, humanism is the most important, I think, reason that I do any activism. But as a humanist, I find that it's important to share those embarrassing, like, oh God, yes, I did believe those things out loud, so that others who maybe wouldn't want to admit those things can let go of those things without even ever admitting and already start living a more reasonable existence. I think that that's so important. So, and I don't take myself too seriously. So if I look embarrassed, it's,
hey, you live and learn, right? I mean, like Deep Astray mentions like astral projection. Yeah, years ago, I didn't know if astral projection was legit or not. I know I had out-of-body experiences, what they would consider to be, which, by the way, I don't think they're out-of-body now. I think they're internalized. I think it's just lucid dreaming. But at the time, especially growing up, I know Cheshire as well. Most of us have experienced some kind of lucid dream in our life. A large percent of the population has. We have it happen regularly. I had it happen all throughout my childhood. But when you're growing up, you don't know. You don't read about these things. You're not privy to information. Privy. You're not. What's the word? You don't have information available to you, and so
right.
Privy. Those kind of lucid dreams are great, by the way. But you don't have anybody to ask about these things, right? So. Yeah, I thought, hey, maybe I am, having astral projection, and I would tell my friends, I'll try to like reach out to you in the middle of the night and send a message and did all these things. It never worked, by the way. So.
You.
Oh, you remember that? Yeah, now you recognize me.
I was like, whoa.
I meant to say, by the way, privy. You're not privy to certain information. I know where privy came in. See what she does to me. what I'm saying. God damn it, Christy. You take the
You're
entire
not
show and
pervy,
you
but
change
you
it.
are pervy.
Oh.
Hey, listen, I support consensual perviness 100%.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
I'm the
Okay.
victim here. Just remember, I'm the victim, and I love it. Super
Bye,
chat.
Would you like to
Brantley.
be the victim is what I'm hearing is that you would
Yeah,
like to be.
when Christy stops being pervy to me and stops sending me things, my life is going to be just done. I'm going to be like, you know what, game over. Just let me die. I don't care.
I might need to be checked on if that ever happens.
Yeah, you're like, what the hell? You'd scare me. Super chat.
Vibrantly
Yay!
Brantley for 2 said, at work, just stopping in to show my support. Swirly hearts and a
Thank you,
smiley face.
Vibrant.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I saw that Christy actually tagged him on Facebook, so appreciate that. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
don't
need more
forget to share,
tagging. We
guys.
need more
YouTube's being
sharing these
weird.
things. What's
Yeah,
that?
sharing and sharing.
Sharing is caring.
Truly.
Scary.
All right.
We had a question.
You read. Okay.
Sorry, give me one second. We did have a question for Steve from Icarus. Where did it go?
Sure.
It had
And
to
then
do
I'll read
with
the next one.
atheism
Okay.
and agnosticism. Where did it go? I lost it. Where did it go? Oh, is there a world difference between an atheist humanist and an agnostic humanist?
Well, okay. I mean, if you're meaning to be a humanist that accepts there are no gods, as opposed to a humanism that is agnostic on the proposition, meaning they don't have a proposition, they don't have belief either way, then sure. But I think they kind of relate very different things, right? Because agnostic and atheism are talking about the ontology of God existing. Humanism, I don't see any relevance to that. Now, I mean, again, I accept more, Christy's positions on humanism than I do like the movement for secular humanism, because I find some problems with that, and this I've always said that. But this is why I'm part of Leah, and I'm not part of secularhumanism.org, right? Because I like the way Christy presents humanism, about how it is about how you treat people. It is about a philosophy, like she's mentioned MLK and all these liberty leaders that have been, hey, you know what, we need to treat people better. And if you can help the poor, if you can help the needy, yeah, I'm down with all that stuff, because this prosperity gospel stuff and this stuff with the evangelists that I see where they're in it for themselves, yeah, that I'm not down for. And so I see a distinct difference in that type of belief system. And so I don't think humanism necessarily itself incorporates by necessity a metaphysical and natural position or naturalism, and that's why I disagree with like secular humanism that says to be a part of this group, this is our belief system. Okay, that's fine. I don't hold to that, and I think it's exclusive when it doesn't need to be.
Okay. And I can answer that very, very similarly. The name of our channel, the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism, to me is so awesome. I love superheroes, and you can see a few of my little toys right here. Hawk Girl. I love the I'm a child at heart. So, the doing the right thing for the right reasons because it's the right thing to do. I am an atheist, but that is not why our channel is important to me. I love humanism, and our name, League of Extraordinary Atheists, are, Mac and I are both atheists, but that is not what defines us or our humanism. That answers to us one single question. The rest of our ideas and our passion and the reason why we do activism is our humanism. So for me, the difference between an agnostic or an atheist humanist, for me, I guess, I mean, I'm both an atheist and an agnostic. It depends on the question. Do I know that there aren't any? Well, no, nobody can know that. But I live my life as if there are no gods. So it took me learning that I've been wrong about so much to never get cocky and think I got it figured out, because I probably will have to let more things go as I learn and change my mind, change my opinion. And humanism, the more I learn, the more people I meet, the more I believe in humanism, and the more I believe that taking humanism, this beautiful idealistic idea for an egalitarian future, and adding caveats of exclusiveness is gross.
I like the way you said that it only has one position, because one of the criticisms I have against atheist organizations is that a lot of them try to run this narrative that, hey, you know what, atheism is merely one thing, and blah blah, and yet they have conventions over it, right? And especially in the weak case, if they say atheism is merely just somebody who doesn't believe, how could you form a group around that? I think that if you actually hold there are no gods, you at least incorporate other things in there. I think that might entail some other things. It's a lot more to be discussed when you say, hey, look, there are no gods. Let me explain to you why there are no gods. And you have a group of people that want to convince people that gods don't exist. That's their movement. They want to change the minds of theists. I can see an organization that surrounds themselves in that's what their goals and their charter is. I get that. When you just say, look, atheism is merely somebody who doesn't believe in God, and yet we have all these atheist groups. To me, that is a non sequitur. It fundamentally makes no sense to me to have a group around what you don't believe. It's ridiculous, and that's why humanism, I think, incorporates a lot of different positions, right? And atheism is merely just one possible thing that it would be, in humanism. Because I'm not an atheist, but I'm accepted in Leah, and I'm a mod for Leah. But nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. It's not critical. You can be a humanist, theist. A theist can be a humanist. Yeah. It makes humanism is right.
Well, I think if you look at this, if you look at the situation, particularly where these atheist groups have culminated, and is in America, and the reason why they're they're all in America is because America has a really big issue with the separation of church and state. So the movement isn't really about what you believe; it's about separating church and state, which I think they would do better. Well, I think they would do better if they were less exclusionary about it. But they're being extreme about it because it is a pendulum swing. They're being extreme about it because they have to get it to get back into the center.
I know theists that are secular. I know theists that say, look, we want a separation of church and state because guess what? If our religion isn't the one that's dominant, we're
screwed. Like that for sure.
Yeah. Yep. Very
absolutely. Super chat, then we can move on.
Okay, sorry, just real quick, you've got to understand though that we have huge swaths of the country who education is just not something that is critical thinking is not taught here. So those same group of people have learned that their religion that they were indoctrinated in, believed in, is not true. And they've done research, and they're letting it go for the right reasons. So on this answer, they are right for the right reasons. But they're still the same people who, 5 months ago were indoctrinated and are science illiterate. And I'm speaking for myself. Letting go of magical thinking was just that first step. That doesn't mean that now I am logical about everything. It doesn't mean anything.
Oh, but I know a lot of atheists that think so. They think
I do too, and it's really frustrating to have conversations with them. I mean,
and they're
really.
just as dogmatic, and I'm just there going, oh my God.
Well, you would argue that there are some groups that are taking advantage of that dogmatic thinking, and instead of
American
educating,
atheists
just going for the numbers. So it's a matter of quality. They're taking quantity over quality, which there's an argument to be made there. However, I don't think it's a very good one. At least not one that
well, there's an argument for demographics for political power, sure.
The super chat. But you would use the same argument for demographics that you would use to not exclude anyone from what you're trying to do if it's separating church and state.
Oh, I agree. I think it's counterproductive. Yes,
right?
I think what they do is counterproductive, but they look very short term. I guess.
I agree with that. John Lloyd for 10 said, "If flat earthers are correct, should we thank them?" No, because they're going about it the wrong way to prove their point.
Yeah, maybe if the Earth is flat, they could actually give some actual evidence and reasons why it's flat that actually we can work on and do the observations, because they're very bad at arguing it then if that's the case.
Right.
The Cheshire freeze? Oh no, okay. No? He wasn't moving there for a second. All right, so let's see where we can make further on here. We're a little over an hour and 10 minutes in, so we're at
we're past the halfway mark though. So
yes. All right, I'll read the next paragraph, and then we can maybe get God read something. Once one pursues the truth, and the Lord himself makes himself even more obvious than nature has revealed, the world opens one's eyes to everything differently. As C.S. Lewis had said, I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else. Nature becomes more vivid as the colors of grasses become greener and the sky bluer. Flowers, mountains, rainbows, palm trees, the sea, and the stars appear as the handiwork of the Creator who appreciates beauty and who loves his creation. Clearly, this is an appeal to aesthetics. This is aesthetic beauty. By the way, I think the argument to aesthetics is not as horrible argument that I know Dawkins doesn't like the particular argument. He's not a fan of the argument for aesthetics. But look, if God created everything just for beauty, okay, fine, whatever. But just because something is beautiful, and I do believe there is something called object beauty possibly out there, but I don't look at something like the flowers and mountains and rainbows and palm trees and see the handiwork of a creator. And it's fine that you do, right? I mean, I'm not saying that a theist shouldn't look at that, but I believe that you can actually look at it and say, look, I appreciate the beauty of nature. I can be spiritual and one, with the universe, so to speak, and just look at something and be astounded by the sheer amazement of it. But that doesn't necessitate that somebody had to create this. It just doesn't follow logically at all. What would you say, Christy?
I can't argue with any of that. I can't. It doesn't follow. It's like I said at the beginning. It was. I understand she's getting this from a specific site. However, it is almost like taking these bricks of fallacies and falsities about an idea I believe in and building a wall in it so that then she can take that wall apart. But none of those things should actually build that wall.
Yeah. What do you think, Chesh? Because by the way, I've read I've read most of C.S. Lewis non-religious stuff like Chronicles of Narnia. Yeah. Brilliant series. Yeah, I love that series. I recommend it to anybody. Even though it has religious overtones. In fact, it's funny because I first read Chronicles of Narnia in the 5th grade, right? And separation of church and state and all this other stuff. Nowadays, I'd probably be precluded from reading that. But I don't think there's a problem reading something like Chronicles of Narnia early on, even though it has theological overtones. When you're discussing it objectively, right? I have no issue with that because it wasn't indoctrination. We weren't indoctrinated that Asgard was Asgard. Asgard is Christ. You might like that. Aslan was like representation of the Christ and the sacrifice and the stone temple, table and everything like that. We understood the symbolism. I don't find a problem with that. It's a brilliant book. But C.S. Lewis also was a Christian apologist, right? And I don't think he makes good arguments for God, even though if I was a theist, I'd probably say, yeah, okay, I'm going to latch on to this. And I think that C.S. Lewis was talking to theists in this particular case. But Cheshire, what do you think?
I think that my response, well, I can get into literature in a second, but I think in response to SJ's argument in the article, I would say, yeah, and taking LSD makes colors bright too. What's your point?
True. Yeah.
It doesn't like... In my opinion, I don't think there's like a whole lot to this argument. I think it kind of is easy to just be like, and I think that chunk. But if you want to talk about literature, I think there are people who seem to have this idea that there are atheists out there who want to get rid of all religion and all religious texts and anything that religion created.
No.
And I think that would be, I'm sure there probably are a couple of atheists who probably think that, but that is so extreme and I don't think that would be a good call.
That would be so sad. That would be devastating. Could you imagine if we couldn't learn about the Sumerians or the Egyptians or all of it? To me, all religion should be taught as literature, as from a very factual. Yeah, me either.
Christine, have you? Did you ever read the Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis?
No, I haven't.
Brilliant.
I know
Screw Tape.
Talking about.
Yeah, Screw Tape Letters was brilliant, and in a nutshell, because it is a lot of Christianity involved with it. You have this bureaucratic demon, Screw Tape. It was his name, I believe, and he has this patient that he's trying to say, hey, I'm going to convert this man of God. And if I remember correctly, he was like on the battlefield. He was like. Was he an army medic or something? I don't remember. But he's trying to give Wormwood help on trying to convert this person. To try to get him into the fold of believing in God. It's a great It's not even a book. It's in a short story, I guess, or more what it was.
Okay.
But we had to read that in early education, right? And I'm fine with that.
I think there's an argument to be made for that we should encourage more study of these texts. And I mean all of them. I think some of the, like, we'd spend a lot of time studying Greek mythology, but don't spend a whole ton of time studying Egyptian mythology or Sumerian mythology, particularly in high school. Until you get into college, you start kind of diving into that if you start doing.
None of that was offered here. Here in Florida in public school, religion is not. Which, I mean, I believe I build that wall between church and state. That's how I feel about it. However,
but I think there's value to take the Bible the same way we take the Odyssey and study it as literature the same way. And I think religious, I think, and same with the Quran, but I think religious people don't want that because they don't want their comparison, and they're actually preventing people from reading about the religion by doing it. So that's also kind of counterproductive.
No, I would be 100% for, 10th graders starting at the Vedas and then, reading all Hindu information, and then the Bible, Old Testament, New, and then the Jesus fan fiction like Mormonism and Jehovah's Witness. I think that all of these things are so important to humanism, because if we understand what humans believe and why, it's easier to not be rude
the time
or
period,
cool. Yes. It helps you understand them.
Yeah, the only problem I have with some of that is that there's only so much time in the day to really have education, right? And I don't know how much we should invest.
The entire education system has to be revamped entirely, like from the bottom up, from the top down. The whole thing needs to be readjusted.
Yeah. Finland. If you guys go to the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism and you go to my my homeless episode, in that homeless one, I explain how Finland is right now eliminating homelessness through humanist policies. And I also talk about education and how Finland is number 1 on the planet because they looked around the world and they did the smart thing. They said, let's take in all the data. And now let's go through the data. What isn't working? We don't want to do that. What is working? Why? How can we implement it? Let's try all those things. And what they saw in the USA was that property taxes are what fund schools. So if you live in a very poor, rundown area, those property taxes are going to ensure that the children of that area have a shitty education. Now, wealthy areas obviously are going to have very well-funded schools. So Finland said, well, that's fucking unfair, and no. So what they did was they took all the taxes together, no areas, no red lines, and then distributed that wealth equally to every single school. Every classroom has 3 to 4 teachers. The teachers start out making about $100,000 a year because they actually want to invest in their future citizens. And so they're number 1. Their teachers also have to have like psychology.
Finland and Sweden are both have a very interesting way of handling.
Scandinavia is kicking our arses up and down this galaxy.
Yeah.
Galaxy.
Fixing that would be great.
Yes. Yeah, I would love to come back and talk about education and why.
Oh yeah, no, we're definitely gonna have you back. Matter of fact, if you're not busy at the end of the week, we might, well, what are you going to be doing? Yeah.
You gotta say, like, it's a month of Christy, and Christy just comes in every Monday.
Quarantine Christy.
Talk with us. Oh my God, we get to keep her for a while. This is like my dream come true.
I start off with my hair comb. At the end of it, I have like
and it
branches.
just gets crazier.
I'm like,
you see how disheveled she is at the end. You know, she has more facial hair than me.
She like puts her legs up on and lifts her leg up, and it's just poof.
Yeah, I saw like a meme thing of, it was like somebody was saying they had this badass like sexy leather type thing, and there's like, this is how I imagine me in the apocalypse, and this is how I am, and they're like in onesie, just sitting on their couch eating potato chips. That's how they're dealing with the apocalypse.
So do we want to get to the next part?
Yeah, here's the thing.
Rationalist ethical system.
Oh,
Hold
my
on,
God, this
real
is going to
quick.
take so long to get through on the
SJ
consequentialist thing.
Thompson in the chat said Finland has 5.5 million people. We have 330 million.
The number of
They're
people
not
is
they're not a
an
melting
excuse.
pot. I have
Yeah.
strong opinions about this. When someone tells me they're homogenous, don't be fucking racist. Like, I don't know how else to say that. Well, they're all white. That's why they can get that done. We're above that. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what God you believe in. You're a human and you deserve these things. And as a society, we need to decide how we want to take care of each other. I'm willing to fight for people I don't know. We'll never know. I'm good with that. I actually want that. So when someone says, well, they're homogenous, like, to me, I'm just like, that's an excuse of saying, well, if we were all white, we'd have that too. Ew! No! I'm sorry. If that comes off rude,
I think a little of the excuse has to do with not necessarily who the people are, but their numbers. They have a smaller population, therefore they can do it. No.
However,
it's just a matter of the way it's organized. The population number,
right.
in fact, America should be better at it because they have more money and people to work on the system to make it better. It's actually the opposite.
Yes.
It is not that people are. It's not an issue of, oh, there's so many people, therefore we can't organize it. You can't organize it because your government is shit. Canada does a better job. Like, we're still not as good as Finland is, but if we can do it, you guys can probably, oh, well, we're too big. Bullshit! You can organize. How is it that you're able to organize you can organize everything in such a way that your capitalism works out the best for the people at the top, but you can't figure out a way to redistribute it and organize it in a way that improves it. Bullshit! That's bullshit!
Eisenhower
I was going to say, instead of getting to the consequential ethical system that's next in our blog, we're going to have SJ come in and kind of talk about what she's already written, but she, I guess, didn't like what was going on and took off. I don't know the argument right now, so I have nothing to input on it.
I'm not saying that she is racist. Those are not my words. I'm saying when I see anyone telling me that this nation can't have humanist policies because we're not all white, or we have too many people, is a bullshit excuse. Because when I do my data shows on why these education policies work, I do per capita.
So who makes those arguments? I don't. SJ hasn't made those arguments.
Yeah.
No, SJ
right
mentioned
in the chat
melting. Now. It's the melting pot part. It's the difference between it's the issue of that. Well, America's a melting pot, and therefore we have it's not explicit in the way it's said. It's that if you say that America is a melting pot, well, what does that mean? It means that you have a lot of different cultures all coming into one place. And you're saying because you have all those different cultures, it's too difficult. And then the second half of the argument is about the population. So the issue is neither of those things. So it's a very, I don't think SJ is racist, and I don't think that she's trying to make a racist argument. However, when your reasoning is, oh, well, America's a melting pot, therefore we can't do it, and our population is too big, therefore we can't do it. Well, bullshit on the population, and bullshit, people have different cultures, therefore we can't have education for everybody. That's kind of racist when you're talking about that Finland can do. So it's a really...
I'm not quite sure I see the racism aspect, but wouldn't it be actually for a country that is more of a melting pot, which I think most people would agree America is more of a melting pot than any other country, wouldn't that something that a humanist would actually say would be an argument that to instantiate humanism more? Wouldn't you want more humanism if you have various different cultures and creeds and beliefs and cultures?
Yeah, exactly.
You would want a more humanistic stance in that particular case, because then you're realizing that, hey, we have one thing in common. We're all fucking human.
Yeah, no, the part that comes across as racism in this argument is that, well, Finland can do it and America can't do it because we have too many different cultures.
Yeah, no, I saw what SJ wrote. I just don't know the argument on it, because I mean I would agree Finland is probably not a melting pot, right? I mean, but I don't see what she. Yeah, so I don't know why she left or what she got upset on.
So this is an argument that you hear on all right-wing political sites.
Okay, I don't. If I'm not on those sites, maybe I'm not familiar with the particular right-wing argument.
A lot.
Okay.
And what they try to say And how I understand it is, and I'm not saying these people are racist, or they believe that they want to be racist, or they want to put forth policies that are racist. I'm saying that these policies, when enacted for everyone, would help eliminate racism by saying we cannot have them because we have too many different kinds of people. That's a bigoted reason.
It's a bad argument.
It's a
yeah,
bullshit,
I think a bad
bigoted
argument.
excuse. Yeah.
Right. And we know by data, as skeptical community, we love data. We love to take it in and change our minds when we get new data. Data shows us that the more inclusive we are with people from India and people from Bahamas and Barbados and South Africa and China, and when they come here, the more we benefit, because it's harder for people to be mean to a Chinese person if their friend is Chinese. It's hard. And I know this is very basic level, human ideas, but it is, if you have friends, your next door neighbor is from India and you have barbecues with them all the time, you're going to go, wait, what's happening in India? It just helps us as people step out of our bubbles and
Jessica,
include.
Can you message SJ on Twitter? Because, like I said, nobody I think would ever think SJ is racist, because that's just obscene. I mean, she's not a racist person by any stretch of imagination. But I mean, I'd rather have her come in and get a fair platform, because again, she's just as Christy mentioned at the very beginning, SJ she'll go in the lion's den. She's not afraid to have conversations. It's one thing I do respect about her immensely. And so I think we should probably give her an opportunity to kind of like defend her blog if she so wants to, or maybe on the next time. But getting into this consequence. Okay, next time.
I think better off too, because we did the show last time about her blog and we're doing a show this time about her blog. I think it would be best to set up a time with her to bring her on to discuss the last episode and this episode, and then discuss the blog.
Yeah, and obviously Christy's not busy for a while, because I'm kind of resonant to kind of go into.
I'm not going to go there, girl. She called me racist.
This ethical consequence. Well, the next part of this blog is just gargantuan, and I don't think there's any possible way we can do it justice in the next 20 minutes or so, a half hour or so. And so it's up to you guys if you want to take a stab at it, or you want to answer questions, or what. I'll let you guys decide how you want to proceed for the next 30 minutes.
I'm down for questions. Or what we could also do, remember, we only got halfway through the secularhumanist.org website, so we could jump back over there and see if we can get Chris thoughts on it.
You want to jump over there and Bull can pull it up? I'm okay with that.
Options.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go over to that site right now. So
send it.
Secular Humanism. I'm sending it here right now. God. I'm going to have to pull it up first.
Oh, did everyone fill out their census 2020 and mail it in?
I have not got one for some reason yet.
Really? That's actually pretty curious. You're in California, right?
Correct. I better get one, because I'm supposed to get my direct deposit of my stimulus check, right? It's supposed to be direct deposited the next couple weeks based upon your 2018 tax returns, or actually 2019. If you haven't done that yet, you're 2018, and I haven't done 2019 yet. I've got a few days to do it. So what are we looking under for the secularhumanism.org? The about page, the home page, the.
I'm on the wrong website. For some reason, it took me to free inquiry. So give me a minute.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. Free inquiry. That's where it takes me to. But I don't remember. This wasn't the same page we looked at last time, but this is a humanistic page. But I don't think this is where we looked at last time.
That was not where we were looking.
Yeah, where were we looking last time? We don't even know where we are. I don't think it was.
Where are we? What are we doing?
Oh, it was American Okay, it was American Humanist Association. That's what it was.
Oh.
Yeah. And so, but it was, which article was it? Like, what is humanism? Promise of humanism, positive humanism.
We were in like their mission statement stuff.
Oh, it was the manifesto. Yeah, Humanist Manifesto 1 and 2, where we're at. How about we just dive into Human Manifesto 2? Is that kind of cool?
Yeah.
All right, I'll send this to you right now. God, there you go. And I guess we'll just dive into it. Let me give it to you in the live chat too out there so Christy can get it.
Give it to me, baby.
Can we
You're
sound cap
welcome.
that, please? Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. That's going to get played a lot. People in quarantine. You just made the lives of numerous people very, very, very happy for a while.
Nacha is our producer. On Liga.
Notch is the most perverted person I've ever met in my life. Yeah, he takes pervert to a whole new level. I love that.
When it's just Mac and I just bullshitting before it starts, you'll hear him laughing, going, "God damn, I need to be recording you guys when you guys are so silly when no one's watching." So you're welcome.
Notch is world class. He's definitely in a class by himself. Yeah.
Yes, he is my upside down, non-existent buddy.
I don't know where to dive in here. How about I
I'm
think
still
we should
trying
dive
to find
in.
the page. Where is it?
The link that I just put in there. The manifesto too.
Me
All right, I'm
and
here.
I think we should dive in here under religion. That would be kind of because we got Christy here. I think that because we all agree on secular. I don't know her position on. She says she's not an anti-theist, so I don't think she's advocating the position of abolishment of religion. I'm one of those people that think if religion is going to be go away, it's going to be so naturally and organically rather than any kind of rulings and law. I don't think that you should ever try to descriptively get rid of religion. That's going to have a backfire effect. It really will.
Right. I am 100% against thought crimes. Nobody should be in trouble for thinking or believing. No.
Because that will have a backfire. And look, if you're going to have thought crimes for theists, then what about the thought crimes for people that, like, for example, atheists that were killed and burned and all this other stuff because, they believe that gods don't exist and they were crucified for it and killed. And, you can't have it both ways. If you want to be a free thinker and you want to be somebody who has rational positions, you got to have some equality across the board. And look, I think you should believe and rethink anything you want. But I think the positions that most people that I've talked to that are into philosophy and rationality and reason, they just want people to have the skill set to make these beliefs to be justified or change their position. And that to me is a greater function of humanity and humanism than any trying to do these laws or try to say, look, you're not allowed to have these particular beliefs, because that's not going to work.
No, it's not. If you do not stand for, be willing to fight for, and support the speech of people you loathe, you do not understand free speech.
I agree.
No,
all right, so let's dive down into. Can you go down to where it says religion? It says first. Yeah, so let's start there on that page. You got that page, Christy?
I sure do.
Okay, I'll go and read it. You know what? Let's have you. Can you read it? We'd like you reading.
Okay. In the best sense, religion may inspire dedication to the highest ethical ideas. The cultivation of moral devotion and creative imagination is an expression of genuine spiritual experience and aspiration. We believe, however, that traditional dogmatic or authoritarian religions that place revelation, God, ritual, or creed above human needs and experience do a disservice to the human species. Any account of nature should pass the test of scientific evidence. In our judgment, the dogmas and myths of traditional religions do not do so. Even at this late date in human history, certain elementary facts based upon the critical use of scientific reason have to be restated. We find insufficient evidence for belief in the existence of a supernatural. It is either meaningless or irrelevant to the question of survival and fulfillment of the human race. As a non-theist, we begin with humans not God, nature not deity. Nature may indeed be broader and deeper than we now know. Any new discoveries, however, will but enlarge our knowledge of the natural.
This starts off okay, then I think it jumps the shark a little bit. The first part I actually tend to agree with. I think that they're right about traditional dogmatic and authoritative religions. That place religion and God and ritual above human needs and experience do a disservice to human species. I agree with that, right? I mean, we see that right now with the pandemic, right? When people are saying, you know what, let's go to church and pray and send me money and we'll pray. And, you watch Keith, is it Keith Copeland or Kevin Copeland? what's his first name? I think it's Keith Copeland, isn't it? But Copeland is. Did you ever watch that video? It's just like came out a couple days ago, and he's just like trying to pray the virus away. He's like, I command in the name of Jesus that Satan take this plague and take the COVID away, and it has no authority over us. It's cringeworthy. And by the way, that's one thing I've always hated about religion is those kinds of evangelists. I will fight to the tooth and nail that I think they're all fraudsters. I don't have to be an atheist to hold that position. I've held that position since I was a teen, watching Benny Hinn. Benny Hinn, and what's the other one that was out there at the time? There's been so many, but he was one of the worst, right? And Peter Popoff.
Baker was
all fraudsters. I could not stand any of them, never will be able to stand any of them. I will go on record to say that I think they're complete con people. So I mean, they've been around for a very long time. So I think that when you're placing, again, religion like trying to pray the COVID away, and you're doing fuck all to actually help this is, then and you're saying people, hey, go to church. No, you are doing a disservice to humanity. But then I think they jump the shark a little bit, because they're going back to the science stuff. And I agree with like Gould in the non-overlapping magisteria. I don't like relating everything back to science, because you're not dealing with science here. You're dealing with philosophy. And to try to relate it all back to, we don't have scientific evidence for God. God is irrelevant. It's absolutely irrelevant, because that science isn't meant to have evidence for God one way or another. It has excluded that proposition from the entire scientific methodological approach, because that's what it was for, coming from natural theology. They wanted to extricate itself from natural philosophy and say, look, we don't even want to deal with that question. We want to find naturalistic explanations for natural phenomenon. And so the God question was taken out of it by methodological naturalism. I'm fine with that. I think that's actually a good way to go. But then they try to relate it back to science. And so when you find insufficient evidence in the belief of existence of the supernatural, that's your position. But you know what? Theists, fine, they would disagree, right? So if you're trying to convince a theist just by saying that you don't have evidence for it, that doesn't do anything to a theist, because a theist will say, well, I have personal evidence for it, whether you agree with it or not, or whether they're justified or not. You definitely attack the justification, right? But of course you don't have sufficient evidence, because the fact you're a non-believer entails that. And that's one of my arguments I've had for a while now. Saying that you have insufficient evidence, to me, is vacuous, because if you're a non-believer, I can, by deductive logic, show that you do not have sufficient evidence if you're a rational thinker, right? We do have we have to assume certain things, like you're on the principle of rationality. To be a rational thinker, if you're a non-theist, that entails you have insufficient evidence, because what happens if you had sufficient evidence as a rational thinker? You would be a theist, right? So.
Yeah, like Ocean.
Well, he would say that he has sufficient evidence. He would hold that position. Right.
And I can't pick apart his argument.
Yeah, so,
and he's a humanist.
I'll tell you, this is one position I diverge with Ozzy with. Who I have the utmost respect for Ozzy. I diverge with him on a few things, and one of which is I think that subjective evidence to oneself is very powerful, and I think that it can be used to justify certain things. Doesn't make it right or wrong. The counter argument that Ozzy and other atheists would use is, well, then if you accept your subjective evidence, you have to allow and account for other people's subjective evidence. And I don't think that necessarily follows, though. The most you can do is say, look, if you believe this, and there are some theories of truth out there that if you hold a particular belief and you have sufficient warrant for it, then you're justified. That most I'll say it is, well, you know what? I believe that you believe it. Like I believe SJ believes this, and whether she is justified or not, only she really can determine that. But I'm talking about internal justification, not external. So when I'm saying that a theist who says I have enough sufficient evidence to believe that gods exist, they're, to me, make an internalized claim, not so much an externalized claim. And so to have the difference there is pretty important, because I'm not saying that as an external claim that it would be the case where if I believe something or somebody else believes something that we're both kind of right. No, I am strictly relating it from an internalized perspective, because I think that if you believe God exists, one of the only ways for me would be personal experience. I think that would be the most powerful thing. If God himself came down and stood behind, here and whatever, I would be pretty convinced, right? And I can't take that away from somebody else. Like the whole Contact movie, she was, talking to an alien, trying to represent herself as her dead father, but she did, go to that planet. But how is she going to externalize that to anybody else? She couldn't. Right. So that's my position on that.
We have a super chat from Helios. for 5.
Yep.
It says, what is this late date of humanity? We are barely out of humanity's infancy. We haven't even proceeded beyond a level 0 culture as a species.
We're at a 0.7 though. We're at a 0.7.9. We're almost, we'll be in a 1 by the end of the century, I think. Maybe close.
We're
A
little
level 1
babies.
civilization.
Little babies.
If not destroyed by then, I mean climate change and stuff.
Yeah, there's that.
But you notice here they use the word.
This
Go ahead.
website is just a little bit. They've added in additional things to make it more exclusive, and I think that's kind of.
Well, here they actually use the term non-theist here, which you don't see very often, which is very inclusionary. It's not exclusionary because the non-theist would include myself, right? And so they say non-theist. We believe with human. We as non-theists, we begin with humans, not God. Well, again, they're making a scope error here because not all non-theists would do that. I'm a non-theist, but I don't necessarily start with humans, not God. I mean, who knows where I start? I have my own foundational system. I don't think you can make a logical argument that as non-theists, you have to start with humans. I could start with the fact that we're just biological creatures, humans or otherwise. I think primates have certain kinds of things that you can start with as having a moral system, right? I mean, we are primates, so it doesn't necessarily apply to humans. And I think that's a modal fallacy there as well. But anyways, continue on.
All right.
You want to read the next part?
Yes.
By the way, your hair is. I had a new word that I learned a couple years ago. Your hair is on fleek, by the way.
I love it.
Oh, sweet Jesus! There is no God.
Okay, I'm going to have to kick Steve from this call. We're going to take over his channel, and
I don't get to use it much. I don't get to use it much.
You shouldn't use it at all, Steve.
It's a great word. It's actually 2 words, but yeah.
Cheshire's face is everything. She's like, I love it. Thank you. It's a
You're welcome.
Non Sequitur show is canceled.
Like I said, I don't get a chance to use this stuff that I learned on NOSSEC often.
on fleek, yo.
Yo. All right. You want to read the next paragraph?
Yes. And we start off with some humanists believe, or?
Yeah.
Yes. Some humanists believe we should reinterpret traditional religions and reinvest them with meanings appropriate to the current situation. Such redefinitions, however, often perpetuate old dependencies and escapisms. They easily become obscurantists, impeding the free use of the intellect. We need instead radically new human purposes and goals.
That's pretty wordy.
Right.
Parse that. I think if I had to take a guess at that, would you say that they're just basically saying, in a nutshell, things that religion give us, we can find alternative, natural, humanistic ways of doing the exact same thing? Right.
They're saying humans need this. Religions have evolved with humans. It's something we need. So let's just remix and put in, other stuff and take out the magical stuff. But,
yeah.
I mean.
Super chat from Helios for 5 says, God's damn it all, Steve. You made me spit up my coffee with that.
Yeah, it was everything.
I try to be entertaining.
Like the Bernie Sanders icon is just kind of like the outline of his hair with glasses. We need just like the outline of your face with your hair and it to say on fleek underneath it.
On fleek. Fleek. Yeah, maybe we'll have a new segment on the Non Sequitur show, the Fleek segment,
I can't.
Hey, we'll call it, how about this? The Fleekazoids.
I can't breathe. What? Oh.
We've got to get Christy on a rum and coke night. This is how she is sober. Can you imagine after like 4 glasses of wine?
Yes, I can. I can imagine.
I need this.
It must happen.
It must happen.
All right, let's read this last paragraph, then we can kind of start wrapping it up.
We appreciate the need to preserve the best ethical teachings in the religious traditions of humankind, many of which we share in common. So to me, that's like the golden rule, treat people how you want to be treated, but also not mandating your daughter to marry her rapist per the Bible. Like, not things
That'd
like
be bad.
Right.
Yeah, that's
So, but we reject those features of traditional religious morality that deny humans a full appreciation of their own potentialities and responsibilities. Traditional religions offer solace to humans, but as often they inhibit humans from helping themselves or experiencing their full potentialities. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
I'm okay so far. Yeah.
Yeah, big time. They do stop people from, they will just pray about it, or you could do something about it. So yeah, I love that. Such institutions, creeds, and rituals often impede the will to serve others. Too often, traditional faiths encourage dependence rather than independence, obedience rather than affirmation. Agree with that. Fear rather than courage. More recently, they have generated concerned social action with many signs of relevance appearing in the wake of the God is dead theologies. But we can discover no divine purpose or providence for the human species. While there is much that we don't know, humans are responsible for what we are or will become. No deity will save us. We must save ourselves. So, I mean, again, wordy, but yeah, we have to be our own heroes. Listen, I'm the first to say, if someone has evidence that their God exists, I want to know it. I want to know it, because if you're right, I want to know that. I want to be right too, so we can help the world know your rightness. Until then, though, we have to save ourselves. Like, until then, I'm open to it.
Yeah.
But as of right now, us. Go ahead.
We do super chats. We got
Failed at
Engineering
engineering.
says, me with my caffeine at the caffeine corner, heart. And Josiah Hansen for 2 says, no wrapping up, I'm being entertained. Cry, cry, smiley, silly face.
Are you not entertained? I'm just kidding. Too much caffeine.
Are you entertained? I think I agree with the majority of this. It essentially comes down to, for the most part, I think most people who follow their religious belief actually, for the most part, act however they're going to act anyway. So, like, their religious belief may be this, they may believe in this God in particular, but they don't really follow the majority of whatever rules are in their Bible. Some of them do.
I hope not.
And when you get into, like, religious extremism, they absolutely do. So if you're, but that tends to happen when you do have a religious state, when you have a religious government, when you start imposing the rules of those religions on other people. So as long as people who are down with their religion aren't utilizing their religion to oppress or attack, and I mean physically attack also, other people for choosing their lifestyles, or using it to impose their rules on other people through government or anything like that, then I don't really think you have that much of an issue as a humanist. Now, as an atheist, or as an anti-theist, I should say, you might take more of an issue with them as an organized group. Like, there's a really big issue in the States of religious people voting as a bloc. And the reason they're tax exempt is because the church isn't allowed to influence elections, except they're influencing elections and not getting taxed. But if those people stopped voting as a bloc and just voting along with what a more humanist viewpoint rather than whatever their church is telling them to, then there would be no issue.
Right.
Super chat real quick, and then I got something to add.
Build and Engineering for 2 said, please get Christine on Rum and Coke.
All right. Well, that's Rum and Cokes are Saturday nights, so I will reach out to Christy on a before Saturday. Let her know when it is, and she can join us. So I want to touch on the whole Nietzsche "God is dead" thing, and I think that was from like Zarathustra, if I'm not mistaken. But I think a lot of people have a misconception of what is meant by that, because I don't look at it. I think it was Hegel that kind of put it as an actual God is dead kind of thing, and I don't think that's what Nietzsche actually meant by it. The way I kind of have read into it is that when Nietzsche was talking about God is dead, he was talking about when people lose religion, like when Christy has left religion. They have to find a new moral type system, because when you somehow lose faith in God, when you have that first loss of your religion, your first loss of this connection you have with the Creator, then this is the way they would look at it, that you have to find some kind of new moral system. And during the time of this Enlightenment period and all this existentialism stuff, they were trying to come up with new moral systems and inviting new moral systems that didn't require a deity. And so the God is dead and we killed them. It was basically, to me, the way I'm reading, and again, I don't like historical philosophy that much. I'm not that good at it because it's very difficult for me. But the way I understand it is that he was saying, once you start losing faith in God, and once you don't need God as a moral system foundation, you then have to find some other moral system to which to rely upon. And I think Nietzsche was kind of right on that. And that's why we have humanistic type moral systems. Morality, the whole thing from humanism comes from the fact that we can be moral to each other without a deity. I wholeheartedly agree with that, by the way. S.J. Thomason would argue without a deity we couldn't.
Yeah, you run into a problem, right? So what happens if a religion comes along that says, well, you should do this, and it's like blatantly harmful to you? There are plenty of religions that have that. So do you choose to follow the religious bit, or do you have like something that's morally reprehensible? Like we would now view it as morally reprehensible to sell someone into slavery. But if the religion says, no, you can do that, and in fact, here are the rules to do so, then what do you do with it? Obviously, whatever morals you end up choosing, if you choose outside of, if you're choosing outside of whatever the religion is, then you are not getting your morals from your religion anymore. That's one of the reasons why I actually agree a lot of the time, not on a moral sense or a personal belief sense with Saitan, because Saitan a lot of the time is right in that he is being consistent with his belief system. He is consistent. He's like, well, no, we shouldn't have to be concerned about this plague going around because God's going to protect us. And via his book, via his belief system, that is consistent and not an immoral issue, because it's not an issue at all morally, because he's consistently following the book he believes is moral to begin with.
And I agree with that. I think I also agree, though, that I think when you have a deity to kind of defer your moral compass to,
I think it's lazy.
I happen to think it's crippling. I think it's morally crippling because you haven't developed any kind of actual type of moral ontology. And so when people have to make these really hard ethical decisions, they don't know how to do it. They have no experience relating to what actually is right or wrong. They just defer to whatever God would say. And most of the time they get it probably wrong, because there's so many different interpretations of what God wants, right? Because, how do you can have a moral ontological framework, but epistemically, for epistemology, how do you know what the hell God wants you to do? You really don't. You're taking a best shot in the dark, just like anybody else, right?
Nobody can know. If they say that they can absolutely, positively know what God wants them to do, I would be scared that they...
I think that they would have an almost impossible bar to reach to justify that. And I know people do say it, but I'm in the position that even if God exists,
take issue with that too, though.
Yeah. I'm at the position if God exists, he couldn't. Well, hang on, he couldn't impart. What do you guys think of this? If God does exist, I don't know by which mechanism, and I've talked to Sai on this, by which he can impart to you such infallibility as fallible creatures that you can have any kind of certainty what God knows. Now, maybe you can make an argument that you using some theories of knowledge. I grant that possibly. But to say that you have like unequivocal certainty, as I've seen some theists do, I don't see how that is possible one way or another if God exists. Because I would like to know, how does he impart to you that infallibility?
Right. Yeah. I find it's very dishonest, and I love having conversations with people. I love people. I actually believe that there are more good people than bad, and there is more good in this world than bad. I really do believe that. And I love having conversations with people and finding out what they believe, and not even for like street epistemology reasons, just out of curiosity, to be your friend, to, you know, camaraderie, to solidarity. And when I come across a human who knows, they claim that they know exactly, you know, these things, that God exists and God talks to them, and they know that God helped them find their keys that morning, but, you know, 35,000 children died of starvation in Africa today. Like, they know these things for a fact. I'm not one. In the beginning, when I was first, you know, coming into this whole being skeptical the right ways for the right reasons, I would have called them out and, you know, pretty much been done with the conversation. That doesn't get me anywhere. It doesn't change hearts and minds, and it doesn't help build friendships at all. So I just asked, you know, well, how do you know, and how can I know that you're telling the truth, so I then can believe what you know? And when they just, you know, I know because I know it. You'll know when you know it. I can't. How do you keep having a conversation?
Yeah, and that's my position as well. But somebody said in the chat that I'll address real quick, then kind of wrap it up with final thoughts. Somebody said a belief is not a claim.
I was going to bring that one up too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I want to make it very clear, when I say a belief is a claim, I'm being very specific, and I've clarified this, that is just a very simple way of saying a belief is the position that a claim is true. So when I say I believe some propositional content, I believe God exists. God is the propositional content. That's the object-oriented position in any kind of language or meta language. It doesn't matter. That's the proposition, they call it, the object. And so when I say that I believe God exists, as a theist would say, I believe God exists, they are substantiating that proposition to be the case, right? So a belief itself is not the claim. The belief is substantiating a proposition, the proposition being the claim. So when I just say a belief is a claim, I'm being very loose in my language, and I've explained that before. So people that like know philosophy, they know what I'm saying, right? We don't have to like sit down with, like, every time. Yeah.
I think we've had that conversation on other Caffeine Corners. So if you want to go a little bit more into depth, go take a look at our backlog. I'm sure you'll be able to find it in one of those ones. And we do have one other thing before we complete our wrap up here. We did get a comment on Twitter that I wanted to touch on from J.K. Ricky, and they said they're
I was going to say J.K. Rowling. I was like, really? That'd be awesome.
That'd be really cool, but
right?
I don't know if any of us are that popular.
No,
definitely not me.
J.K. Ricky said, in referring to secular humanism, says the main flaw I've found from in-depth study is, quote, its core foundation is the feelings of fallible and irrational human beings, end quote. There could be more, of course, but that's the big one that brings it crashing down to me. I'm generally for its ideals, but it lacks a solid foundation. So what they're saying is that humans aren't good enough to be able to, like, because we're irrational and we're fallible and we're emotional creatures, we can't possibly come up with a system. My personal rebuttal to that would be, okay, but humans have to interpret whatever God's imposing anyway by that logic. Therefore, anything, even if it is coming from a deity, it still has to filter through our bullshit. So it's stuck either way.
See, and what I take from that is, so you're saying we can't because we're too irrational, so then we make up a magical thing that can. That we're still the ones dealing with it. We're just pretending we're not. And I choose not to live in that. I choose to say, okay, we're here. This is reality. This is how we found ourselves. Doesn't matter who's to blame at this point. Boomers. No, it doesn't matter.
Boomers. I think most people act out and live as if a God doesn't exist anyway.
Right. And let's, like I said before, I would be very interested to know if there is one, and if someone can prove that to me, please do. I want to know. But until then, I have to act as a responsible being on this planet. And if I can offer help, and it's not going to hurt me to offer help, it's my responsibility to help. I think that kindness fucking matters. I mean, it just matters. I can't even stress that enough. I
also can't imagine. I can't imagine a religious person in like the more common or current, like present day religions, not agreeing with that. And like at least with the big like 3 or 4, you would expect, like particularly with the Abrahamic religions, that you're dealing with people who would not or should not have any kind of issue with that that philosophy, that ideal.
I think the simplest way to wrap it up is this: don't be a shitty person.
Yes, be kind to each other.
We see shitty people all the time, and one of the things we do on Caffeine Corner is hopefully give people the skill set to determine who's a shitty person, who's not. I mean, that's one of the goals that we have. And if you can't recognize somebody like Christy, who's the antithesis of a shitty person, I mean, she should be something we should all try to attain, that kind of zen that she has, because she's well on my leave. I could be an asshole. I'm okay with that. I'm never going to reach Christy's level of
honestly, our community needs you, Steve. Our community needs the firebrands, the strong ones. We need all of us to be skeptical.
It takes a mixture. It takes all
kinds. And not everybody. Like, then your group doesn't get anywhere. You need to have different, like, you can't just have a team of only tanks. You can't have a team of only healers. You can't have a team of even if you were to have a team of only clerics, all of those clerics are going to be specialized in something else. One will be healing, one will be tanking, one will be hitting things with a hammer.
Right.
Yeah, I would not want to change. I don't want to become like her. I like my approach. She likes her approach, and I don't think one is more beneficial than the other. I think it takes a village. And so I'm not, but I do think we all agree on this, is that shitty people don't need to be a part of a community, because all they are good for is to show people what you shouldn't be like. They use as a example. That's about it.
I think shitty people should be, for the most part, ostracized outside of keeping an eye on them to see if they improve. Keep an eye out, and if they're trying to come back and they're actually earnest about it, it doesn't mean they get woke. That doesn't mean, oh yeah, no, welcome everybody, welcome back with open arms. No. It means specifically that, okay, we see you. I've been doing this with, if you guys recall when we were dealing with Dumb Fuck of the Year, one of the women we were talking to flipped the hell out. And we were all like, okay, well, fuck. And so we were like, no, we're not going to deal with that. So she went off, and then she got treated really poorly by people that she thought were going to treat her better, and she kind of came back. Now, what our community has done is we haven't treated her poorly. We haven't been like, no, you get out of here. We've been like, leave her at arm's length and say, okay, well, we're not going to like let you in on shit, but we're not going to treat you poorly. We're not going to rip you apart. We're allowed to come and hang out with us. We're just not like... And it's no issue. I straight up went and helped her out on her stream a couple of days ago, because she was like, hey, can you come and help me mod this thing? And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'll give you a hand.
Yeah, but there's certain people you're just not going to like trust fully on certain things without reasons.
It's a matter of depending on in what way and to what severity have they been problematic. If it was somebody who has been so problematic and has continued to be problematic over and over and over and over and over again, and they've had multiple chances, or they have their opportunity, they just squash it at every point. It's reasonable to be suspicious if they're suddenly starting to be nice to you. And if they're starting, but that doesn't mean be a dick to them. It means, okay, I see that you're not being a dick. I'm going to be cautious in interacting with you, and I might agree with what you're saying here, but we're not friends at all, and we're not going to hang out with you until you demonstrate that this is a consistent new behavior change or adjustment that you've made.
I know we got to wrap it up.
That's reasonable. Don't feel guilty about that. People feel guilty about that shit. Do not feel bad about having an expectation for people to meet before you let them back into your friend groups.
Jess, you got anything coming up this week? You got anything that you're promoting this week?
We have a heavy that time of the month, additional that time of the month,
heavy flow?
Tuesday coming up. It's
heavy
flow. And this one's going to be a little bit rough. This is going to be talking about Joe Biden and Tara Reid and the sexual assault allegations and the stuff that's gone on with that. So that one's going to be not only demonetized, but it will probably also be suppressed.
Wait, I don't even know about that. Biden and Tara Reid, like the Tara Reid.
Not
So
that
Ter-
Tara Reid that you're talking about.
Okay, not the one
Tara
that
Reid-
had surgery.
He was a
woman
staffer of
who
his.
worked with him,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
back in the 80s, who was sexually assaulted by him.
He pushed
Okay.
her up against the wall and forced his fingers inside of her.
Get that,
Yeah.
Joe Biden?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, see,
Creepy
I
ass
need to,
Joe Biden.
I don't follow this stuff, but I'll have to look
So
into
we're gonna
that.
focus a little bit on that story
I
in
do.
particular. I am also currently looking into the other 7 women who have talked about it, and we're gonna kind of talk about the political pressures, how this changes this political spectrum for some people. It obviously won't be for everybody. And then sort of why does it take 7 people? What is the culture that we currently have that is causing this problem? How do we do to change it? And what steps have we maybe already taken to make things maybe not be so bad? One of the things that she talks about, which I think is hugely important, is that she has tried to tell her story and she has not been able to. So people are coming forward saying, like, well, why did you take so long to come forward? She's like, I've been trying to tell people for years.
He has contemporarily, all documented. She had come out to her brother, her mother. There's no way that anybody with, any kind of critical thinking would look at what actually is the facts of the story and say, nah, he didn't do it.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that. And by the way, I really do like the that time of the month. And I'm gonna put a shout out before Christy wraps up her thing. I'm gonna put a shout out to
That'll be at 9:45 p.m. EST tomorrow.
I'm gonna put a shout out to the
Okay.
shills and to the uncalled for.
Yes.
I'm really liking the
Glorious.
uncalled for. I don't like a lot of shit, to be honest with you. I watch, the occasional stuff, but I really do like the uncalled for. I think they're doing an amazing job. And I'm not just doing virtue signaling. I'm not, patriarchal, matriarchal.
I
just
actually
to think
have
they're so
something
good.
for them in my back pocket that I want to send them.
Yeah, they've been doing a really. It's entertaining. Hey, my thing is, as long as I'm fucking entertained, that's all I give a shit about, right? That's what I want when I watch a YouTube channel, because I only have so much time to watch stuff. And I know other people. One of my things that I ask people is like, what have you been watching? Have you seen this? And I'm just kind of curious. And so when people add things like the shills or the especially the uncalled for to their bucket list, and they say, yeah, I've watched that. It's getting to be pretty popular, and I can see why. And also that time of the month, same reason. I think they do a really good job. And
I think
I just
that
love
time of the
people on
month
there.
has a lot of potential to be a very, very good, very inclusive, very interesting show. So hopefully
The name
it'll take
kills
I like
me.
Trip Bears that time of the month. Yeah,
It kills me. It's
the heavy
so
the
plug.
best. So somebody actually asked us one of the days, somebody, like, we were like, do you guys have any questions for us? And somebody asked, so are any of you on that time of the month? The answer is
They're already cycling together.
that time of the month actually happens, like right at the, it's me.
And a halftime of
So
the
if I
month.
look
But
tired or haggard, that's
Christy-
why.
promote your shit. Do your shilling.
All right. Let's see if I can. I don't know if I can. Oh, someone else is going to have to put it on there. It won't let me. Okay, Leah, League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism. I get to do whatever I want, cover whatever I want, which is so amazing. I am a policy junkie. I actually read bills. I read policy, and I have no problem looking into the history of the policy, who said what, why it started, who's behind it, who's funding it, and then actually reading it. And I think that that's important. And to me, as a policy junkie, I think that it's important as it is for me when I was coming out of magical thinking, to have science communicators who could communicate science literacy to me, someone who was, for the most part, science illiterate when it came to understanding, the amazingness of this galaxy that we live in, the whole everything. Well, I think it's just as important to have someone who can be, as we have science communicators, a policy communicator, and can explain, what it would do, and why, to me, humanism is so important. Is because I get to explain these policies that rule us. We have lawmakers who create policies. Those policies get voted on, and then they rule us. Those are the laws that we live by. So it's very important. Our whole world actually revolves around this stuff, and most people are woefully ignorant. And that's not, I'm not being, rude. That's just as far as knowledge goes, people don't have time. They're feeding their kids, they're working, they got to get the kids bathed, and I get it. This is all recent for me too. Within the last 10 years I've been a policy junkie, but the last 5 or 6 years I've been about it. And I think that being able to do what I do on Leah has really been a lot of fun and a lot of work. Each week I cover a story that I get to go in depth on. It could be history, it could be policy, it could be a current event, it could be about the Cheeto McTweeto in the White House, which is the best name, and I will call him that forever. I think that it just tickles me. It's not cruel. I'm not a cruel person. I'm not a meanie head, and Cheeto McTweeto fits. So, and then why I think humanism is so important is because all we have is each other. I mean, Cheshire, Steve, if I needed something, from one of you, I'm not going to ask the sky. I have to ask one of you and hope that you would be there for me, whether it's advice, or a virtual hug, or, just friendship. These things matter. Kindness matters. And if I could do one thing, like I said earlier, in this world that would make me happy, it would be to leave each place that I find myself in a little bit better than the way I found it. And I think that I want to spread that, and I want that to be contagious. And I hope that people show up on Friday nights for Leah. And if you like it and you participate in chat, I love taking suggestions. We have a lot of fans that send me hey, check this story out. And it will lead me on to oh my gosh, look, I found this with the Contras in 1984, and you've got to hear this story. So it's a lot of fun if you're into attempting to apply logic and reason to religion and politics, because that's what we do.
I think that what we should do is we should get in touch in the background. We'll see if we can set something up for all three of the groups. However, I have been working in the background to try and get a schedule set up for when everybody is posting at and what times that I can kind of just update on Mondays. So when Fight the Flat Earth is having a debate, when Steve's having a debate, when you guys are having your show, when that time of the month is, and building a calendar. So it'd kind of be like a TV guide.
I love it. Yeah. That's such a great idea.
We've got a
also helps
partial
us
one
not
right
to
now,
schedule all on
one.
top of each other.
Yeah.
YouTube guide.
Yeah, we've got a preliminary outlook on that already. We're going to try to make it bigger, but you've got 964 sub. We could easily get you over sub. Come on, let's get over to 700. Come on, I don't know why she's not 1,000, but the link is going to be in the video description. The link is in the live chat. So come on, help subscribe to people, man.
That people are oh, that means I have to pay attention. And people have to, and it's on a Friday night. That's how hard
Friday,
I
10:30 EST. Yes,
I spend my Friday nights on policy.
Yeah.
Well,
so
just because
Friday
it's live
nights,
on Friday doesn't mean you have to watch it on Friday.
Absolutely. Yes.
But yeah, definitely, we'll definitely do some collabs. I think you should have Cheshire on. We'll work with the Uncalled For, and we're working with the Shills, and I don't know. We're whole bunch of stuff is in the air. So like you said, it is, and you've been a part of this community for quite some time. I know a lot of stuff you were behind the scenes, but you've kind of put yourself more in the forefront now, and you're becoming more popular YouTuber, believe it or not. So yeah,
even when we disagree sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially
virtual hugs.
Especially.
Virtual hug.
There you go.
That's going to be screen capped. There's no question about it.
It better be. If that isn't memed all over
Best
Twitter, I'm going to be disappointed.
Ever.
Don't disappoint the goblin.
That's amazing.
We love you. All right, we got to wrap it up. Bullerinator's is going to.
I'd have joined you, but I'm wearing a t-shirt. It's not going to work.
And nobody cares about my man boobs, so Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe. Please send these videos out. I know YouTube has not been notifying people. I know they've cut their bandwidth. It is rough all over the place. Views are down across the board. Content creators have been complaining to YouTube. We know it's nothing we can do about it. It is YouTube. But you can help us by at least sharing the video and actually leaving comments on the video help as well. So if you come back and tell us what you think, you want more Christy, less Christy, who would ever say that, you're going to get deleted if you say that. Let us know what you think. And we appreciate that. We do like reading the comments. So I think a lot of people aren't leaving too many comments because they're not getting notified of this.
And if you're new, check out our previous episodes. Check out previous episodes of Leah. Check out previous episodes of that month. And check out previous episodes of Caffeine Corner. There's a lot of education in there. All of them, actually. All of them have like buttloads of education. So you want to learn yourself a thing? Go watch.
All right. Love you guys. Thank you. Christy, it's been... Man,
love you.
I love you so much. But stick around for a second before we go off. Bull, and you got to add and then take us off?